when you're on the board, when you're on the dais, maybe 6 months from now or a year from now, and you're listening to a superintendent's report, how will you know that schools reopened with equity? Starting with you, Nolita.
So how will I know that schools, as if they happened in the past? Gosh, I would look first at data, right? Like which campuses did we reopen? How many students and teachers were infected with COVID? I mean, this to me, I struggle to answer it because it sounds really morbid to think about us reopening unsafely, and that's what I'm afraid of, is that we're heading into a reopening situation based on vagaries of political winds bending to capitalist interests rather than sound scientific public health data. And so I do struggle with that, but I would look at data and look at how did reopening impact our least advantaged students compared to our most advantaged students, but that should be happening now.
Thank you. Jared, same question.
Well, as for me, I currently, like I said, I'm working on campus. So the thing that I'm looking for six months from now, a year from now, is if we open as is right now, which students are going to be directly impacted? Is it going to be our Hispanic and our African Americans? Are they going to be the most highly impacted by COVID-19 as we reopen these campuses? If so, then we know that we have failed them equitably again. In addition to that, allowing our staff and our students to have choices, not forcing them back into campuses, not saying it's either this or that, because there's multiple options that should be allotted to our families and our staff members. So those are the top two things off the top of my head. Thank you.
Thank you. Leticia, what would an equitable school reopening look like for you?
Well, if we're looking 6 months later, we need to, disaggregate the data. What happened? If equity is getting our students what they need to perform well or serve their needs, did that happen? Did we do it? How was it done? Was it done well at this campus versus that campus? So that kind of data and analysis and output needs to be part of the report 6 months later. It is, again, like I mentioned earlier, highly stressful for many involved. And it's not, again, to use a word that was mentioned on Monday night, monolithic. It's not all what this population wants this or that population wants that. It is all over the board on how people are impacted by COVID. And so if you're going to do a review in 6 months, it has to have some disaggregated data and seeing how we performed in serving all of our students and teachers and AISD family.
Thank you. Mike, same question.
Yeah, I think for me, what it looks like is how did we utilize our resources equitably during that time? And how did we prioritize support to students and families? And so in an equitable way, I would want to see that the district prioritized families and students with the most need, which are also our historically marginalized families within the city. And so that should be happening right now. I mean, we're looking at how technology issues were handled over the summer. And at one point, there were still like 10,000 families without access to internet. Those things aren't going to go away. We need to keep making sure there are going to be families who talk louder over other families. There are going to be sides of town that have access to people easier than others. We need to push all of that out of the way and say, are we actually meeting the needs of our families that have those needs first? And that's really what it comes down to. There are going to be some people who need to get their needs met first. And that some people will get those needs met later.